Too old, too slow, too good, and they might be the best team in it. Not that it really needed to be learned or taught in a way, but if there was one takeaway from the Anzac Day game, it's simply that there are two things in footy that you cannot buy, yet are the most valuable assets to have no matter the conditions: composure and footy IQ. And they were the two biggest differences in the game. I thought the Bombers actually applied themselves in a really positive way. It's so obvious that Brad Scott has got them playing a system that may just be lacking the personnel. But if they can get the personnel right, how long that takes is going to be a completely different story. But the personnel that the Bombers get that will make this system work will turn them into a really good footy team. Guys like Archie Roberts that they were able to get later in the draft is only going to be a good thing. Nate Caddy, yes, he had some moments that weren't great, but 2 goals, 3 on a wet day shows the potential is there. The Bombers have got some really good youth in there. A couple of their more experienced players, boy, let them down in a little bit of a big way, but I don't think they're too far off the mark, the Bombers. I really don't. I think the way that they want to play is a tick. They just don't have the tools yet in order to get it done. But back to the Pies, their ability not only to slow the game down from a momentum point of view, you saw that with the uncontested ball when the Bombers were coming hard. See, not even the best teams in the competition, whether it is Collingwood or you're still thinking that Brisbane are the best team in the comp, but everyone agrees that Brisbane is still up there. Geelong, of course, GWS, these kinds of clubs. And then, of course, the ones that are chasing, your Gold Coasts, your Hawthorns, your Adelaides, etc. And that could even change given how Adelaide play against the Dockers coming up later on this evening at the time of recording, is that you're not really able to stop momentum a whole lot. The opposition at some point are going to be better than you for a 10, 15-minute period of time. And it's up to you as a better team, especially down back and being able to guard the 50-meter arcs. You need to slow them down in some way, shape or form. And arguably, the Pies were the ones that couldn't put it on the scoreboard. Yes, the Bombers were ultra accurate and took their chances for the majority of the first 3 quarters. But there were times where the Pies giving up momentum wouldn't have been such a big deal if they just had of kick straight. But they didn't. You have to deal with the game as it comes to you, and the Pies were punished in a way by giving up the lead a couple of times in the second and third quarters. But, like all good teams do, once the foot was available to go on the throat of the opposition, they took full effect. And of course, Josh Daicos deserves the love that he won't get because of Nick, of course, the youngest captain in Collingwood's history over the last 6 decades, which is simply extraordinary. But Josh was outstanding. He had 13 disposals in the first quarter. He had 16 on the ground before anyone else on the entire field had 10, which is extraordinary when you think about it, especially on such a wet day. I thought Pat Lipinski had really big moments. Bobby Hill, who was played on so well by Andy McGrath, especially in that first half, of course, came to life. It was just a 6-minute burst, and it wasn't anything spectacular, of course, outside of that incredible goal from the pocket, but it just awakened the Pies a little bit, and it was those kind of insignificant long-term actions that led to short-term results and enabled the Pies to kick into gear. Of course, Jamie Elliott was outstanding on the day. Ned Long continued to do what Ned Long does, which is the ultimate Timu Tom Mitchell role to extraordinary effect. And of course, how do you get any better than the aging vets in Scott Pendlebury and Anzac medalist Steele Sidebottom? A massive shout out to my much better half, who after I said to her, look, we've got a $5 bonus bet here. I've got a little bit of money on Nick Daicos. I've got a little bit of money on Dan Houston. You want to throw anyone out there for the Anzac Day medal? And she went, what about Steele Sidebottom? And I went, in the wet, the way he plays the game. Beautiful shout. Chucked it on there at $12. We're dominating. So really, this channel should just be called She Talks Footy. I don't know how comfortable she is with me saying her name on camera, so that's why I went with she. Don't fucking come at me in the comments, all right? I'm doing actually what my partner feels comfortable with, so up yours if you disagree with that. Anywho, back to the content at hand. What was so remarkable and why Collingwood need to be seen not only as, of course, the team on top of the ladder, but the best team in the comp right now, even if they do drop a game in the next week or so, is that when the going gets tough and their backs are against the wall, so many of them will stand up. The overhead marking ability of Isaac Quaynor and especially Jeremy Howe, who, if there was such an award, would win my Mr. Underrated for this game. He was outstanding. I think he took 9 marks on the day. I think he had 11 intercept possessions. He was totally dominant down back and was able to do as he pleases, but their ability to take contested marks over their head inside the defensive 50 or even uncontested marks overhead the Pies in order to set up forward chains was extraordinary. There was a burst there in the last quarter where the Pies had 5 consecutive defensive to inside 50 chains that led to scores. I think they kicked 3 goals, 2 from it, which, 60% conversion is still okay. It's not perfect, of course, as we know, but they did it in a massive way. Darcy Cameron v. Todd Goldstein was actually quite fun to watch. Of course, around the ground, Darcy got the job done. I didn't think Goldstein shamed himself in any way, shape, or form. I thought what Sam Durham was able to do on Nick Daicos in the second quarter was awesome, but for some reason kind of went away from it a little bit. Part of that was, of course, how Fly was going to use Nick off the stoppage just a touch as more of your outside player, and it's really going to be interesting now because Nick Daicos is thrown into kind of one of 2 baskets, which is the media granting him the title of best thing since sliced bread, which can rub some people up the wrong way. He is the quickest player in VFL AFL history to have 35 disposals and a goal 10 times. Did it in his first 74 games. So trying to take some kind of quality away from him is ridiculous, in my opinion. But also, he's still under 80 games into his career. Let's enjoy it while he lasts. Those clowns on social media saying that he hasn't taken a contested mark in his career yet, when you figure out that that's actually not his job, you'll probably enjoy him more as a player. And sometimes when you do videos like these, you have to give a little bit of a shout out to those players who no one else is talking about. In terms of a role that I loved in that first half, Beau McCreery was awesome because he was able to get up the ground. It's something that I've said on the channel quite a few times, that Beau around the ball is a net positive for the Pies, and he really showed that in the first half. Fingers crossed that Dan McStay is A-OK. It looks like, according to the Fox Footy guys who are in the know, that he may have escaped an ACL at the time of recording. I have no idea. Loved what the skunk in Tim Membry and Brodie Mychek were able to do from a competing point of view. Love what Zach Reid was able to do down back for the Bombers. And there is a point of concern for the Dons, though. Jordan Ridley right now is not the interceptor that he has been in the past, and is not a key defender, whether he was on Jordan Dugowie or whether he was on Jamie Elliott. In a one-on-one with no one coming up over the top, he kind of got exposed a little bit. Mason Redman's first half was downright abominable, unfortunately. And after all that, though, there are still positives for the Bombers. Yes, a 41-point loss sucks. I understand that, and there is going to be frustration from a historical sense about where the Bombers are at. But I feel pretty good about the Bombers, actually, moving forward. They're going to get some really good kids in the draft again. They're going to be able to get rid of some guys who aren't as competitive as they should be moving forward, and I think the game plan is going to be a winner. I really do. But the personnel is just not there. It's there for the Pies. They're old, they're experienced, they're composed. If they can get the man and time management right, the Pies right now are the best team in the comp. And I genuinely don't think there can be an argument against that so far. Really pumped to see what Freo and Adelaide do tonight. The review for that game will be out at the time of recording tomorrow morning. You can also check out my Melbourne and Richmond review. The more that people watch those, the more I really appreciate it. I love talking about the footy over the weekend. I hope you do as well. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Plenty of good footy to come. Freo, Adelaide, my tip before the game starts, I actually think Freo might get it done at home. We shall see. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.